That is looking like a tree decoration. Now you can do that all the way up the whole tree. It doesn't really matter, whatever. I've done them where I go all the way up. It depends on the type of wood. If it's got lots of character in it, sometimes you leave it plain, sometimes it needs a little bit of accent to it, but nonetheless, it's unlimited choice. And it doesn't have to be 1/4 inch, it could be 3/8, it could be a half, it could be variable, depends on what you want to do. So here I'm marking the tree itself. I know where the top is going to be, so I'm marking every inch. For demo purposes, we'll do it every inch. And again, same process. Put your pencil on the line that you marked, spin the lathe slowly, and you've got your marks. Now you can look at that and say, that's okay, but then you can turn around and look at it and say, you know what, I don't like it. It doesn't seem to look right for the tree. So there are other methods that you can use. You can use the same tape measure and you can say, you know what, I want a cascading type of event where you go 1 3/4, then 1 1/2, and then 1 1/4, and then 1, and then 3/4, and walk your way up. So you have progressive differences in the leaves, wider at the bottom or taller at the bottom and smaller at the top. Whatever looks good. Once you do 1 or 2 or 3, then you find you'll start experimenting. So same process. Mark the lines because this helps your eye gauge where you have to stop. This is the end termination for each of the branches that you're going to do. So by doing this, you now have a reference point for your eye. So one of the tools you can use is a bowl gouge. Just a simple bowl gouge. Doesn't have to be anything fancy. I'm going to drop the tool rest again because it was up high for the skew work. So I dropped it so it's in line with center for the bowl gouge. And all I'm doing is just introducing the bowl gouge slowly. Again, the same thing. Near the top and then push it back. And see what's happening with my hand? I'm turning. The hand is staying on the tool rest, but my body is pivoting, and that's creating an arc and forcing the tool to arc in underneath the bottom of the limb above it. So this is how you establish that flow of a tree that's, gently floating out. And then you creep up to that line because you've got that reference point now. You can just allow the bowl gouge to go up and just keep taking a little bit of wood off until you get to that line. Work your way back to the bottom of the branch and get a nice flow. Now memory muscle is important here, so whatever you did there, you just transpose it. I didn't change my hands, I didn't lift my hand, I kept it same position on the tool, and all I'm doing is mimicking the same motion, and that will get you very close to the same type of look on each branch, as long as you don't release and then try and reset. So that's one of the tricks I found, is that rather than trying to replicate it over again from scratch, just hang on to the tool and just move up and do another one. And you'll find that it'll just come. It'll be simple. You just move it back, take a little bit more. You're not trying to hog out. You're taking a very, very small slice, as you can see. And you're just lining up. And then you take a look at the depth between the two, and you can say, yeah, that one's a little fatter than this one, so maybe you have to adjust. In this case, the one above it wasn't quite in as deep, so you go in and you just make a fine-tune adjustment until you look at both and you say, that's pretty close. And there you go. There's 2 branches done. And that's just using a bowl gouge. So now, the other tool you can use is a spindle gouge. What happened? I've lost track. All right, sorry about that. My video froze on me for a bit. So use a spindle gouge, much in the same way. But this time, I'm going to go straight in. I'm not going to put a curve on this one. I'm just setting the angle on the spindle gouge on the end of the tool so I know what approach my angle is going to be. So that's on the very nose, keeping it the same. And see, this time I'm not rotating, I'm pushing with my finger. So my body's not rotating, the tool is just moving forward on that straight line. And then going up again to the line. So there's memory muscle again, there's the angle. Hold on to that, repeat. And that way you know that the angle that's going to be on the next branch is the same angle that you had on the branch below. I have a compelling need to do a Jeopardy song going do 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 do. So nice and straight, finish off the edge, and again the same angle. The angle that you have on the bottom branch has to be replicated on the top branch. So you check that, make sure that there's the angle, transpose that, make sure you've got the same angle. And that way it looks fairly crisp and even. And you can see as you look up the tree now, it is starting to look more and more like a Christmas tree. Now, you can also do any kind of embellishment. So in this case, if you wanted to put a nice little mark right at the bottom of the tree as a definition, right in that branch, you could do that for every branch, some branches, no branches. Same thing. Use the skew, cut a little line in there so that the wire will ride in the line, turn up your speed, and place a mark. And then mark it. And now you have an accent on the branch. I had to turn the speed down because it was up high for the burning. Now this time, back to the gouge, the same fingernail. Gee, I forgot the name of it already. Fingernail gouge. Spindle gouge. But this time you'll see I start off just roughing out, and now I'm going to start rotating. You can see the hand stays still and the body starts moving. Because now I want to create an arc up inside. And I go a little deeper, I think, on this one than the others. Do you see that catch? That's called a design opportunity. You will get a catch because the approach was incorrect. I tried to do it and it wasn't the right angle for the tool, so she skated a little bit. But that's no problem. Christmas trees aren't perfect. So another option you have, if you have the right tool, and the right tool is as simple as an old screwdriver away, to take an old screwdriver and sharpen it up and put an edge on it, much like you would a scraper. In this case, you can see it's got a little nose on it and it's sharp. And so I'll use that as a little end point, and I'm going to undercut that branch. Take your time. It's just going to slowly come up and creep up under the tree. So now you have a branch that's folding over the branch below it. And that's the purpose of that. You know, you can get quite deep if you want to. The deeper you go, the riskier it is that you might catch it. When you withdraw the tool, you have to withdraw it deliberately and slowly out. Don't just decide you're going to pick it up off the tool rest, because it will hit and cause some grief. But that's another option for you is to just undercut the branch. Now I'm cleaning up that little design opportunity. And now go back for the next branch. And again, using the same technique, you'll see I'll get down so far, and then I will start rotating. So initially, you want the wood to come off and get out of there so you can see what you're doing. And now you just want to rotate. So notice how I changed hands, changed position. Every once in a while you learn from the past mistake. You say, oh yeah, that's right, I can't do it that way. I have to go this way. Otherwise you risk another design opportunity. Now in this case, I'm not going to undercut it like the previous one. Another option is to just use a skew and take it in flat, straight up. Be conscious of where the face of the tool is. You're not going to present the skew straight at the cut. It's got to follow the bevel. So you line it up that way and go in. And now you have a nice, clean, crisp, but straight edge right in. No curves and very little tear out underneath. And of course, you can always use the skew to do the same job that the spindle gouge would do. Same general process. And again, you start, and then you can see my body slowly turning to get that round going. You get it cutting, and then you make it follow the curve and create the curve using a skew, even though it's straight. Same principle and same cutting action that the spindle gouge was doing, just using a skew this time. It was better with the noise of the lathe, because you could hear it at this point in time. It's starting to chatter a little bit, simply because you're at the end of the lathe. It is supported at both ends, but the tailstock doesn't have much. There's not much wood left. Going back to the spindle gouge, take it down a bit more, and what I'm doing is setting up to define the top. Now, there's many options you can do for the top. We're going to end up with a ball, but you could easily just form it into a point, and that's good enough. And that's the top of the tree, is just a nice point. You can create a ball. You can create, I've seen people where they deliberately leave it fat, and they use a Dremel tool or a little baby saw, and they create a cross on it just by creating a bigger ball and then cutting out the cross out of it. But in this case, I'm going to start the process of doing a ball. So you slowly work the ball now. So it's beading. You're just using the spindle gouge to set a bead and cut into it and start defining what the ball is going to look like and where it's going to be on the tree. Again, take your time, very deliberate. And you see there's not much motion going on. The hands are pretty, tight to the tool. Now the body is up. It's a fine motion, so you see it's just thumb movements and finger movements. There's not a lot going on. It's a finesse environment as opposed to a brute force rough cutting exercise. So you want to take your time, be very deliberate in your tool placement, and just fine tune it. And your eye will start telling you, yeah, that's getting close to the right size. So I'm just getting rid of the excess waste just to see how this thing is going to look. I'm going to get my thin parting tool out, which is nothing more than a recip saw blade that I've ground off one end and put a point on it, and it's my thin parting tool. And it works perfect for this. It doesn't have much of a bite, and it cuts in pretty aggressively. So it does a nice job and easy to control. Move the tailstock out of the way. And that's why I like having the tenon on the Christmas tree, because now I can play and I don't have to worry about sanding or trying to fine tune something. I'm at complete disposal to do anything I want. So before we get into a ball, I just trim off the end and make it into a point. So this is no different than finial turning. You're just creating a nice finial. So you, again, finesse, see where my thumb is, nice and controlled. My body's moving, and it's a very deliberate cut action. And I'm turning it into a bulb, much like an onion bulb. And that's a look. You can look at that and say, hey, I like that. And you're done. You know, sand it, finish it off, part it off, and you're done. Well, we're going to go to a ball. So what I'll do is I'll start that cut, but while I was doing that and rounding the ball, there's a secondary look, which is just another finial-like, where you start rounding the ball, and all of a sudden there's a little Christmas tree on top of the ball. You just cut in on one side, cut in on the other side, and now you have a completely different look. And just take your time, get that last little point off. And that's another look. Or you can just get rid of it all, round it over, and now you have a ball. I'm not sure if I show the last stage, but now you just part it. Where the parting tool was, or at the base of the tree, you go back, and I didn't part it off because I'm going to clean this up and make it into another tree. But I would use the parting tool, go in at the back, and start parting it off. The only thing you have to remember is when you're parting it off, make sure your parting tool is pointed into the tree, because you want the base of the tree to be the point that stands on, much like a bowl, and the inside